pleasing, but really trying to see how to make the difference. So I don't have a meeting today with any client where this is not on the table. That did not happen a year ago. We have every meeting I have, we talk about the issue, we talk about their policies, we talk about the challenges. And then you understand better also the strategies of the company. So it's such a positivity around the issue when you have that dialogue. And we have also implemented, by coordinating our efforts with some of the other Scandinavian or European banks, recycling of ships. That's a huge challenge for the industry, and for many reasons. Because there's not enough capacity, there are no global rules on how to do it. And how can we make certain it's done in a responsible way? So that's another theme where we have put requirements on the clients. We as banks, not just ourselves. And then by setting requirements, I think that's the only way to really put pressure and move in that direction. So that's one of the most concrete examples. And the industry is going along that way. But sometimes, somebody said today that the regulators have to go ahead. Sometimes maybe capital will put the requirements ahead of the industry. So it's I think, to have the courage to go that extra line and to set that requirement.
This is it's a very interesting thought, and we would love to hear from all of the panelists in terms of what these requirements are, particularly on the topic of carbon pricing, a carbon tax, what amount, shadow pricing, etc. So we'll hear from that in a moment, but let's go to Roberta for 1 second before we get to that. And you also talked about the need for regulation, the need for a better governance system. Tell us how that would look like for an integrated approach toward both climate change as a systemic issue and water sustainability as another systemic issue.
Wow. Oh, that's a really hard question. Can I answer a different question?
We would love to hear about the aspects that you were referring to in terms of requirements and regulation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about governance, and let me give you an example of what internal governance around these overlaps looks like at PepsiCo, and then maybe we can expand out to what external governance might look like. So, I can give you a very concrete example from a consumer packaged goods company. We have just recently launched an internal tool that's designed to provide our new product developers with carbon footprint information on their ideas as they make their way through our innovation stage gate process, the water footprint of their ideas, and the impact on packaging recyclability. The overlaps between those three are significant, even just within one core business process for PepsiCo. So there are some decisions that a product developer makes on packaging that take the overall carbon footprint of the new product in the wrong direction. Or decisions that a product developer might make on the raw material ingredient, the agricultural base for the product, that take it in the wrong direction in terms of a water footprint. So rather than trying to set guardrails or set regulation internally on what trumps what, pardon the use of the verb.
Got scared for a second.
Me too. Rather than do that, we stepped back and said, listen, this is the first time really in the company's history that these product developers have this information to begin with. And the way that the innovation process works is there are gates that the product has to pass through on its way to launch. And the idea is, at these gates, the gatekeepers now have actual hard data where they can say, here's what this choice in packaging does to the carbon footprint versus the water footprint versus the plastics issue and recyclability, where they had none before. And we found that there was a tremendous thirst amongst the people data. They want to make the right choices, but they had no information upon which to make the choices. So we're giving them that information. But it's new. And imagine trying to make those trade-offs and package up that complex information in the form of an external regulation that would drive behavior. I can't imagine it, quite frankly. I can't imagine how you would do it.
Yep, and the effects of that. Ignacio, did you want to come in? Do you want to follow up on this thought around regulation requirements, the topic of carbon pricing in particular, and how you see this trend evolving?
Well, I think we tried for years to apply the principle who pollutes pay. So finally, in certain countries, the price of carbon is already achieving certain level. We help already of switching of technologies from one side to another one. My concern is that now certain governments of countries is becoming nervous because that field and that increase final prices. But I think carbon is just precisely for using this money for invested in those technologies which are not polluting. So, and what we are seeing in certain areas is that they are already, for keeping and maintaining the competitivity of the fossil fuels, they are already putting taxes to those technologies which are not already emitting. So, which I think is no sense what you are seeing. So, saying that, I think something you mentioned and was very pleased. I'm a bit concerned what is certain of the indexes which are being used for sustainability. They are, I'm really very much surprised when I seen that companies which are on the list of certain rankings, which are already being measured just because of the goals or their commitments, but not already being measured by their own fact, reality. So we cannot continue already putting in the same basket those ones which are already doing their job, as you mentioned already, or those ones which are promising that they will do sometime in the future. So the greenwashing is already becoming already a reality, and everybody is measuring in the same manner. So those ones we have already done the job, trying to diminish their emission, trying to make already proper management of the plastic, or making already a proper whatever thing, and those ones which simply said, well, by 2050 we will be good guys. So, and they're already in such and such a ranking, exactly in the same way that those one has been for 20 years, already trying to diminish their polluting, either carbon or whatever polluting materials, exactly the same thing. And for banks and for financial institutions, a Norwegian one, which I think is one of your main fan, is one of our important shareholders. I'm very pleased that you are there. Is already just looking this list in the same manner that those ones which are doing the things correctly and those ones which are doing just promising. So, and I think carbon is the same thing. I think we've been fighting for years for trying, then the carbon price increases, and one increases, everybody surprised because it increases. So, I think we are already trying, then the carbon will be a mean for switching technologies for those which are polluting to those which are not polluting, for avoiding just the subsidies to certain technologies. We fortunately today, most of the technologies also are more competitive than those ones which are fossil fuels. But we continue already just subsidizing fossil. We continue, in the moment the carbon is already minimizing these subsidies, automatically it's charged taxes and obligation to those things which are not polluting. Because, it's because the prices of whatever electricity and so on is increasing. So I think those things we have to come to the reality. I think it's not time to talking. I think I was delighted today with the speech of the Secretary General. So it's time of the civil society, it's time of the companies. I think it's true what he says about the momentum. I think Paris was the momentum of the civil society, and we have to come back again to the civil society to make the momentum. If not, I don't like to give a word to my son, what is already happening. I think all we are trying to do things in order to give to our son and grandson a better world than we have today. But it seems that the short term is already being imposed to a long term. And there are certain things which is nice promises, populism, etc., which is not already making that one. The short term is already imposed to the long term view.
Yeah.
And the climate change and the pollution is not something for short term.
And thank you for bringing up the issue of measurement and assessment of your impact on society, whether it's positive impact or negative impact. And the panel that will follow this one will look into this. And this is a big field for harmonization and for better understanding of the data and even having just meaningful data to play with. Jean-Louis, let's hear from you. Let's hear about your science-based target. You're the first water utility company that has a science-based target in place. Suez has also been a champion of the circular economy. You've been advocating for a carbon price for a long time. Would love to hear from you how these topics come together in your company, particularly looking at how your target has been helpful to drive some of the other areas of work in your company.
First of all, I would like to mention once more that, in fact, in the environmental business, everything is linked. It has been said before, but the water footprint, the carbon footprint, at the end of the day, you will see that, yes, we need some metrics, but they are interfering one with the other one. Let me give you 2 or 3 examples. We know for sure that we will need by 2050, probably, if we are 9.5 billion people, we will need probably 60% more food than we have today. To produce food, we will need water. And how are we able to provide this water? You don't forget that when we speak about water, we all often are thinking about ourselves, our own consumption. But in fact, the crops, the agriculture needs are roughly 70% of the world consumptions, water consumptions, industry 20, and household 5 to 10. Okay, so how can we provide so much water? And we know that it's going to come from 3 different areas. The first one is, of course, savings. How can we save water? And it means more technologies. We have been talking before about that. Of course, we probably can produce more food with less water, but it will be insufficient. Second, we need to make sure that all the water we get can be reused. So the reuse of water is going to become a major issue. But you know, to reuse water, to treat wastewater, consume a lot of energy. So the more you are going to clean up the wastewater, the more energy you are going to consume. Therefore, again, you have 2 dimensions. First one is, can we treat the water and clean the water, consuming far less energy? We believe at Suez that it is possible, that we can reduce consumption by 30 or 35, 40% with new membranes, new technology. That's one way. And the second way, of course, to use more, I should say, energy, clean energy. Then it will not be enough. So you will have probably to establish very large desalination plants. Desalination plants, it's again a lot of energy. So how can we manage at the same time to reduce the consumption of energy to produce 1 cubic meter of water, and how can we provide clean energy to do that? At the end of the day, what I want to say is that all those elements are coming from, in the same streams of solutions. Solution will be first to measure. No way if we don't measure. Second,